Chapter 6 Opposition. Part 1 Opposition in Football, Bayern and Dortmund. If you're into football, you've probably felt the heat of a true rivalry. In Germany, the tension between Bayern Munich and Borussia Dortmund is legendary. When these two meet in the Bundesliga, stadiums are packed, fans roar, and the media builds it up like a battlefield. Coaches throw jabs, players clash, and it all feels like war. But behind the curtain, things aren't what they seem. In the early 2000s, Dortmund was in serious trouble. They had won the Champions League in 1997 and spent big to stay on top. By 2003, they were buried under more than $100 million in debt, almost bankrupt. And who saved them? Their biggest rival, Bayern Munich. Bayern gave Dortmund a $2 million interest-free loan. Why? Because they knew. Without Dortmund, the Bundesliga would lose its drama. Fans would tune out. TV deals would shrink. The rivalry kept the game alive, for both sides. So what looked like fierce opposition was actually cooperation, a performance perfectly staged for the crowd. Part 2 Manufactured Rivalry, a Business Tool. Most fans believe the rivalry is real. They pick sides, buy jerseys, shout insults, place bets. But for the people behind the scenes, the owners, the league executives, this rivalry is strategic. It's a tool to keep things exciting, to make sure everyone stays engaged. Zoom out and the same pattern appears elsewhere. Manchester United and Liverpool, Real Madrid and Barcelona. When Manchester United struggled in the 1980s, English football quietly supported them. El Clasico isn't just a game. It's a billion-dollar cultural asset. Without rivals, the entire sport weakens. That's why opposition isn't about destruction. It's about balance. It keeps people watching, feeling, spending. Part 3 Financial Opposition, USD versus its challenges. Now let's move from football to finance. The US dollar has rivals too. Bitcoin, China, Russia, Iran. When Bitcoin first appeared in 2008, it positioned itself as the antidote to the dollar. Decentralized, free from the Fed, immune to inflation. Debates exploded. On one side, Bitcoin as freedom. On the other, the dollar as stability. A digital rebellion versus a global giant. But zoom out again, and the picture changes. China, Russia, and Iran have also tried to push back against the dollar. China launched the ECNY. Russia built SPFS to bypass SWIFT. Iran attempted to trade oil in gold and euros. It looks like ideological warfare. But for those managing the dollar system, these rivals aren't enemies. They're useful. Part 4 Bitcoin, absorbed by USD, profitable opposition. The people shaping the dollar's system don't fear Bitcoin. In fact, they welcome it. Bitcoin skyrocketed from pennies to $69,000, and all of that growth was measured in dollars. More than 90% of Bitcoin trades are settled in USD. The capital flows through American exchanges like Coinbase and Binance. Even the money used to fuel Bitcoin came from the US. Between 2008 and 2014, the Fed injected $4 trillion into the economy. That capital, some of it, flowed into Bitcoin. It helped turn it into digital gold. So instead of killing Bitcoin, the system fed it. Bitcoin, in return, strengthened the very currency it claimed to resist. Part 5 China, Russia, Iran, involuntary servants of USD. This dynamic goes beyond crypto. Look at the countries labeled as America's enemies. In 2018, the US sanctioned Iran. Its oil exports dropped by 90%. Russia faced sanctions after Crimea in 2014, and again after the Ukraine conflict in 2022. China fought trade wars and tariffs. But behind the headlines, something surprising happens. These countries still feed the dollar system. China, for example, kept buying Iranian oil, often in secret, through intermediaries. Many of those deals were still priced in dollars. Russia, too, before shifting to other currencies, sold oil and gas in USD. Why didn't the US block it all? Because it needs the flow. If China doesn't get oil, its factories slow down. And when China's production halts, global supply chains break. That hurts the dollar more than it helps. Part 6. China and Iranian oil. China gets over 70% of its oil from the Middle East. It uses about 14 million barrels a day, but only produces around 4 million itself. That shortfall is filled by countries like Iran and Russia. Even under sanctions, Iranian oil reaches China. It travels on ghost ships, vessels that hide their identity. The payments, often in dollars, funneled through places like Singapore and Malaysia. The US knows, but it looks the other way because it understands the game. If China stops producing, the global economy suffers, and so does the dollar. Part 7. Opposing assets and nations in the USD ecosystem. The dollar's power doesn't come from crushing its enemies. It comes from turning them into participants. Bitcoin, priced in USD. Gold, traded on American platforms. Oil, sold in USD since the 1970s. Even countries under sanctions, like Russia and Iran, still use dollars through back channels. The system is designed that way. The more opposition there is, the more transactions flow. And the more transactions flow, the more the world needs USD. Opposition keeps the machine running. Part 8. The invisible stream. Power of the money printers. If you control the dollar, you're not just managing a currency, you're managing global stability. You broker oil deals between Saudi Arabia and China. You allow Bitcoin to rise just enough to keep attention. You lend to Vietnam, to China, to Argentina, through the IMF, the World Bank. You're like a silent river, touching every country, every company, every coin. Even your rivals need you. Russia, Iran, China, they all run on your currency, even when they say otherwise. Part 9. Future of opposition, an endless game. New challenges will come, new technologies, new ideas. But can they escape the system? China's eCNY is used in just 2% of global trade. Russia's payment system covers only 15% of its needs. Iran still relies on dollar-denominated workarounds. China needs oil from Iran and Russia to power its factories, and those factories drive the dollar economy. The loop is tight. To the ones printing dollars, none of these opponents are a threat. They're characters in a long-running play. Part 10. Conclusion. Opposition is the dollar's strength. The fight between the US dollar and its rivals isn't about survival, it's about performance. Just like Bayern needs Dortmund, the dollar needs drama, it needs Bitcoin, it needs China, it needs Iran. Because every time someone says, "down with the dollar," they use the dollar to say it, and the system grows stronger.